With Rich, you're listening to KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. We got all kinds of stuff to cover today. We've got a special guest in with us today. John Mraz of Mortgage Hub is with us, which is very exciting. Very excited to get somebody from Mortgage Hub in here. They're one of our sponsors, friend of the show. We use them for all stuff. Best lender I know. I know a lot. There are a lot of good lenders out there, not to take anything away from anybody else. We just really like Mortgage Hub. And so we've got John Meraz in with us. We're going to be talking about all things mortgage and how to get going with that. But first, we're going to talk about kind of some numbers, a little bit of market wrap-up kind of stuff for Santa Clarita and San Fernando Valleys. And then we're going to get into the president's proposal. There is a new house proposal that the president floated during the State of the Union. And any help is good at this point, because anything that unfreezes the real estate market or helps at all, we are definitely in favor of, but the proposal made it is wrong-headed and silly and will not work and is doomed to failure. And we're going to talk about what the proposal is, because there's not really a proposal so much as just a few kind of basics, but even the basics is silly. It's just not going to work. But before that, first thing I want to do for some friends of ours at the BBMS Happy Children Memorial Fund. They are having their third annual barbecue fundraiser. And they're going to have it out in front of the Green Valley Market, 16166. That's a lot of sixes. 16166 Spunky Canyon Road in Green Valley, April 20th, which is coming up here and not too distant future, next month, from 11 to 2 p.m. We'll talk about it on the show next time as well. But it's for survivors of domestic violence, people overcoming addiction. It's a very worthwhile charity. We like to promote it. It does really good work. And they're doing all kinds of stuff. There's live music out there, and there's going to be hot dogs and burgers and all sorts of food and raffles and guess how much candy in the jar type games. A lot of hometown type of stuff out there in Green Valley. And so if you're within the sound of my voice, give it a check. Check it out. April 20th, 2024, between 11 to 2 p.m. All the money goes to a very good cause, the BBMS Happy Children Memorial Fund. And it's you should go out there. It's a good time. I hope I will be out there. I'm going to try to. They always do it right around my birthday, unfortunately. So my wife, I think, has something else planned. But we're going to try to get out there anyway. We'll see. Okay, so that's that. Let's move on to the market. Market snapshot for the Santa Clarita Valley as of February 2024. These are the February numbers. The median sales price in the Santa Clarita is up 8% from the previous month, year over year, to $780,000, which is pretty much where it was the month before. We're up about $20,000 from the month before, which is $760,000. And given the value of the houses, that's kind of within variance. For single-family homes, it's $875,000 is the new, which is up $55,000, which is just balancing out because last month it was $820,000, which was down $30,000. So $875,000 is your median sales price for a single-family home in the Santa Clarita Valley as of February 2024. For condos, that number is $545,000. Which is up only 5% from last month, but up 10% year over year. Be careful with these year over year numbers because they're not really an indicator. The housing market hasn't gone up for condos in the Santa Clarita Valley 10% in the last year. That's just the mark of February 2023 versus February 2004. I think the overall numbers are much more telling. For example, the number of new listings in the Santa Clarita Valley in February, that's in the MLS. This doesn't count for sale by owners, of course. 285 listings. That's it. That's 40 last month, but still abysmally low. That number should be 500-600 easy. So we're still very, very down on market. We just don't have enough properties on the market. Inventory is very, very small. 419 active listings. That's including the 285 new ones. 157 pending sales. So things getting a little bit better. We're up 67 listings on the active side. We're up 42 on the pending side. That's versus last month. But it is still not that much. And the big number is closed sales. And that number is 139 in the entire Santa Clarita Valley. There were only 139 closed sales in the month of February. That is abysmal. That number should also be somewhere around 500-600. The fact that it's down that low, that tells you the story. I've been saying this for months. We've been in the great real estate freeze since at least February of last year, certainly March when the Fed started to spike the interest rate like crazy people, like sailors on leave for goodness sake. And ever since they've done that, they've essentially frozen the real estate market. The Fed's attempt to get the get the inflation rate under 2%, which is a completely unrealistic goal in my view, is now creating the very problem they seek to prevent. Because by messing with the interest rate the way they have, creating this artificial bubble that we're now in because of it, what they've done is they've created an entire generation of people who aren't going to sell their homes. I am one of them. I have a 3.5% interest rate on my house. Why the heck would I sell my house, even to move into a bigger house, just so I can have a 7% interest rate and I can watch my mortgage triple, at least double? That's not going to happen, and for most people, that's not. So you're cutting out whole segments of the market because of that. And the other side is buyers. Buyers don't want to go at 7%. They'll go at 6. They'll go at 5. They'll darn sure go at 4, but they're not going at 7, and that's just the reality. So until interest rates starts coming back down, which because of some good news this week on some other economic fronts, it looks like that won't be until probably the third or fourth quarter of this year. Hopefully it'll be this year, because the interest rate is everything in real estate. And what we're doing is we're sacrificing a lot of markets, especially real estate, trying to chase down this 2% inflationary goal, which we're just not going to make. It's just nonsense. It's not going to happen. So that is this quick market snapshot. That's where we're at. Basically, if you're looking to buy a house, there are deals out there. They're just harder to find because there are fewer houses out there. If you're looking to sell a house, you'll still do okay. If you're priced right, your house will still sell. You just won't have quite as many buyers. You won't have quite as many options. It's basically shrinking the entire market for supply and demand. Both of those things are racing to the bottom. We have less supply. We also have less demand. And it's shrinking an entire market. It's not shrinking the values. It's only shrinking the volume. And to think that volume somehow equates to value in the housing market is just wrong-headed. Add that to the list of issues I have with the Fed. But let's move on from the Fed. Let's talk about President Biden, who usually I'm a fairly big fan of. The president has proposed some relief efforts for homebuyers in the State of the Union address, which I really want to touch on because, oh my God, are they wrong-headed? Okay, let me read you this article from ABC News that was published last week. President Joe Biden declared triumph on bread and butter issues at his State of the Union address, describing the U.S. economy as, quote, the strongest in the world, which it has been for the last 60 years, but great. Still, he said conditions must improve for middle-class Americans, pointing, for instance, to high costs in the housing market that remains resistance to cool down everywhere else in the economy. Yeah, housing prices aren't coming down. You restrict supply, housing prices go up because there's still people who are buying. You're not going to restrict the buyers quicker than you're going to restrict supply by spiking interest rates. But anyway, here's the proposal. Biden proposed a pair of tax credits for current prospective homebuyers meant to ease affordability and stimulate the housing market. Quote, if inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well. Wrong. Not how it works. Now, if he means if inflation comes down, the Fed will bring down the interest rate on their side, yeah, maybe. But there is no economic correlation between inflation coming down and interest rates coming down in the mortgage market. That just doesn't exist. But okay. But he says he's not waiting. So here's the proposal. And I heard this and I thought, oh my God. Okay, so here's the proposal. He's proposing a $5,000 tax credit for first-time homebuyers to put toward their mortgage, which he said amounts to an estimate of $400 per month. Now, I love a reporter. This is a perfectly lovely reporter named Max Zahn from ABC News. But why didn't you do some math? Because this is a math thing. Here's how this works. A $500,000 mortgage at 6.5% interest rate on a 30-year term has a monthly payment, this is just payment and interest, not including taxes and insurance, of $3,160 a month. Okay, $3,160 a month. At $495, $5,000 tax credit, drops your purchase price by $5,000. At $495, at the same interest rate with the same 30-year term, that payment is $3,129. That's a savings of $31 a month. That is not $400 a month. Now at $800,000, it's about $39 a month. At $200,000, it's about $19 a month. So it is not a $400 a month saving. So maybe there's more to this plan. I hope there is, because $5,000 tax credit is nothing. Nothing in any place people want to live. In California, in Florida, in New York, in any of the states with higher real estate values, that is a waste of time. Now, outside Canton, where the average sales price is $110,000, maybe it means something. But in Southern California, in the places where real estate actually gets bought and sold en masse, this is just wrong-headed. A $5 tax credit is like spitting into the wind and hoping for rain. That's what that is. He is spitting into the wind and hoping for rain. It's just dumb and will not work. In addition, the White House has put forward a $10,000 tax credit for families who sell their starter homes in the theory that the measure will facilitate activity in the housing market, since many homebuyers have clung to their current low-interest mortgage rather than take on a new mortgage at a much higher rate. Okay, as we just talked about, the average sales price in the Santa Clarita Valley right now is $780,000. That's including townhomes and condos, and houses, of course. The average sales price in the San Fernando Valley, other side of the hill, is $930,000, and that includes single-family homes, condos, and townhomes as well. I got news for the White House here, and they should know this, for goodness sake. A $10,000 tax credit is not going to move anybody who's going to sell a house at around $780,000 or $930,000 or any place that has, well, frankly, anything over $200,000, I would think. That is not going to motivate anyone to do anything. Giving me an extra $10,000 in tax credit isn't going to get me to sell my house. It's not going to get my neighbor to sell their house either. Why? Because those houses are expensive. And $10,000 means nothing. So like most of the proposals we get out of the federal government for real estate, first of all, they're trying to apply a national solution to what is a local problem, which is wrong, isn't going to work. And more importantly, the numbers that they're suggesting here are useless. Completely and utterly useless. They are too small. They will not move the dial. It is just that simple. So Even the economists that they talked to said this very same thing. They said that it's not enough money to move the dial. The maximum tax credit of $10,000 is small relative to this amount, so it might not be enough to incentivize one seller to sell, let alone two. So yeah, giant waste of time. And here's where it gets really interesting for me, because that's what the White House said in the State of the Union address. But yet the Builders Association, which came out right after the address, because they're also talking about building houses and increasing supply, the National Association of Home Builders released a statement in support of the plan. This is from earlier this week. And I want to read you what they said, because this part terrifies me. Many of the incentives proposed by the president to build and preserve an additional 2 million homes, including a new $10,000 tax credit for first-time homebuyers, was 500. There was 5,000 in the State of the Union. Now it's 10,000. That'd be great. That would be better. I have yet to see that, but okay, fine. According to the Builders Association, $10,000 tax credit, strengthening the low-income housing tax credit, and up to $25,000 in down payment assistance. And here's the part that irks me: to first-generation homebuyers. Now, just so you all understand what that means, first generation means that your parents didn't own a home. And I get what they're after there. They're trying to get everybody into the ownership society. I could not agree more. But first generation homebuyers? Look, my dad left me with nothing but debt. He died and left me with debt. He didn't leave me a house. But yet I wouldn't be able to use this program because, well, I already own homes, but if I didn't already own a home, I wouldn't be eligible for a program like this because my parents had the audacity to own a home. So what the Builders Association is saying, if I'm reading this correctly, is that their version of the White House's proposal has this first generation requirement in it, which is nonsense. You are going to penalize people because their parents owned a house. What about their grandparents? What about their great-grandparents? I don't know. Generational wealth isn't getting passed down the way it's supposed to. None of it really got on them. I didn't get any. Everything I did, I had to do kind of on my own. So I think you'll find that most people that's true of. So the idea that it's going to have some sort of generational component, I find deeply, deeply offensive. So it's too little. It is too late on both the buyer side and on the seller side. And if this is true about that the Home Builders Association is talking to us about first-generation home buyers, any requirement that has a generational component to it is nonsense. It is nonsense, and it is not going to work. To penalize the following generation because the one before them didn't do good enough or didn't leave them anything is just nonsense. It's just garbage. Anyway, these are all important steps toward these important steps forward to address a national housing shortage of roughly 1.5 million units and to boost housing affordability. That's a guy named Kel Harris, who is the chairman of the National Association of Home Builders, and he's a custom home builder from Wichita, Kansas. Look, there are an estimated 1.4 million units of housing were started in 2023. That's not down 9% from 2022. We have more demand and yet less supply. That sends prices higher, not lower. And that's just the reality. So those are the numbers. Those are the plans. We'll watch this carefully. I'll report on it to you as soon as I hear any more about it, obviously. When they release an actual plan, if they get that far, we'll talk about it for sure. Because I got to tell you, what I've heard so far, dumb. Dumb and destined not to work. Unless you live in an area where the prices are very, very low, maybe $150,000 average for an 18,000, 2,000 square foot house, maybe. But that's not here. That's not here, and that's not any place people want to live. And when you're talking about areas that don't have as much turnover in real estate, you don't have the volume of change, you can't affect the volumes. I mean, you go to sell ice cream in a place where it snows, you're not going to do very well. You go to some place where it's hot, you'll do fine. Kind of like that. It's just wrong-headed. Anyway, let's get on to our guest here. So I tell you what, let's hear from some of the advertisers. We'd love to hear from our supporters. By the way, folks, when you guys do hear the advertisers, please help them out. When you support the show and you support the advertisers, and we appreciate that. When you support the sponsors, you support the show, so please do so. But let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to have John Meraz from the Mortgage Hub. We're going to talk about all things mortgage, how to get one, how to make it easier for you, what you can do to get it cheaper, all kinds of inside tips, secrets, and stuff like that. So it'll be all kinds of good stuff when we come back. In the meantime, please listen to the sponsors, and we'll be back 2.5 minutes. Thanks. Hi guys, thanks for listening. You've reached the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. And thank you guys for listening through the break. I appreciate it. We have a special guest in studio today. We have Jason Mraz from, am I pronouncing your last name right?
John.
John. Oh my God, I called you Jason Mraz. I was listening.
I know why.
Everybody
probably knows why.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday. Are you related to him, John, by the way?
No.
Damn, I'd love to get tickets. Anyway, I'll have to work on that some other way. But sorry, John Mraz. I'm sorry. My apologies, John.
No problem.
I'm practicing all morning.
Happens all the time.
First time came up, but blew it. Anyway, so we'll just go over your bio. So John, in addition to working for the Mortgage Hub, he, graduated high school in 1995. So I didn't want to date you there, but you did put that in your bio. I was reading your bio this morning. It's just absolutely fascinating. Because here's the fascinating part. It looks like you were you went into the Marines and you became a diver for the Marines. That is a very serious job. And then you were becoming a commercial. You got out of that, were becoming a commercial diver, and then of course you did the only natural thing possible. You became a mortgage lender.
Yeah, completely different.
I'm not sure. How did you go from commercial diving to deciding to become a mortgage lender?
You know, I was in Long Beach. I was a little younger. I wasn't really sure how to navigate the whole union stuff, and honestly, maybe how to work hard through it and look for a mentor and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little challenging trying to find consistent work once I got out of the school. And at the same time, like I said, it was a refinance boom. My circle was doing really well, and I was watching it from the outside, and eventually asked, "Hey, what are you guys doing over there?" And
maybe above water is maybe a better place for you to be. How's this mortgage thing
It was
work?
a lot more busy,
Yeah,
of course, but it was fun, and just never looked back.
How does this mortgage thing work? So, okay, so 2005, you get into the mortgage industry, and you got into a fairly large company. You're running larger companies, had all kinds of people working for you, and so that's kind of your mortgage experience before you go over to the mortgage hub. And so you've been around a long time. You know what you're doing. And we obviously talked about that.
Went through the early years, call centers, and stuff like that.
And then, and the real fun stuff is you got married recently. Well, not too recently, 2019, I guess you got married. And the really cool stuff is you just had a baby girl. Congratulations!
First baby. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, enjoy it. Mine's 17. Not as my daughter is as awesome as you could possibly want in any kid. She is any parent's dream. She's an amazing kid. Truly, like she takes after her mother, thank goodness. But she's still a 17-year-old girl, and I swear that girl can roll her eyes so hard it affects weather patterns. It's ridiculous how hard she can do that. And I unfortunately kind of enjoy annoying her, so it's a kind of an ongoing struggle. My poor wife, she just gets the fall out of all this. Hi, honey. But anyway, so you just had a baby girl, so you got a little one at home. Married in mortgage industry, so all that other good stuff. Let's talk about mortgage stuff because we talked about all kinds of stuff over the last week or so. And what we get the most questions about lately is we talked about really do call in. Really sorry, but I get a lot of emails. The biggest email questions I'm getting lately have to do with real basic kind of stuff like, okay, I know the interest rate isn't where I want it to be as a buyer. It isn't where anybody wants it to be as a seller either. But what do I need to do to get a mortgage? What's that first step? I mean, other than the obvious, which is give you a call.
But that's surprisingly the hardest step for most people, I find.
Let's make it easier for them. Give the people your phone number.
Phone number is 949-836-8055. John Mraz.
Say it one more time.
949-836-8055.
And for those of you guys who didn't get it, you can always call me. I'll be happy to get it for you. You can get it through the station. Send me an email. I'll be happy to get it for you. No problem. But, okay, so the first step. So let's say I'm a first-time buyer. I know nothing about nothing. I've called you on the phone, and I've said, I want to buy a house.
So that kind of leads into what a lot of people don't understand. There's what's called a pre-qualification, a pre-approval, and then a fully underwritten approval. Okay. And the first step is the pre-qualification, which is simply I answer the phone. We take about 15, 20 minutes, if longer if needed, and just asking the basic questions. But there's three main parts, right? There's credit, income, and employment, and down payment. Okay. That's what a lender typically looks for for a home loan.
Those are always the big three.
And those are the questions you ask. How do you think your credit is? Nothing exact, just off the top of your head. How do you think your credit is? Ask about your employment, your income, how you're paid, self-employed, W-2, things like that, how long you've been there.
Start getting it together, sure.
And then down payment. What funds do you have available for a down payment? And you may not have funds for that. That's where the down payment assistance programs comes in.
Yeah, advice, just so you guys are listening, I don't interrupt, but just so you know, I want to interject this because it's really important. When a lender asks you, when anyone asks you how much money do you have to put down on a property, 0 is an acceptable answer. It is not something you should be ashamed of. It's just that just limits your program. Just there are these,
of course.
Like that, and there's some great 0 down programs out there. VA comes to mind.
There's many. There's many. I heard you talk about first generation. There's some programs that have that same criteria. I know. But there's many out there.
I understand it in a loan program if you're talking about a traditionally disenfranchised group. I get that. That's fine. But anytime we restrict things like that, it doesn't work.
You're making the box even smaller as well. They're not as easy to qualify as people might think. Yes, there are grants. Yes, there are loans up to 20%. But there are guidelines to those.
Of course. So, all right. So I come in. I've got decent credit. You pull the credit. Obviously, we see what it looks like. And again, just so you guys know, if there are credit issues, they may not even be yours. We had one recently where we found out she had no clue she was in the process of suffering identity theft. She'd only been one card had been drawn, but when somebody pulls your identity theft, they get a bunch of them really quick. Only one card had shown up that she didn't know about, and we're like, today you need to go talk to the sheriff. today and talk to all of your creditors, your bank, and everything else. And I think we headed off most of it, but it took a while to get fixed. But the point is, it's fixable. Your credit is not written in stone. It is fixable.
It is.
In
And I
most
think
cases.
that's like a common misconception is that you have to be ready to buy a home to call and get a pre-approval.
Yeah.
And you don't.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times it's just to get a plan, right? Just if you need to lose weight by the time you get to this wedding, you have to have a plan for that. And it's the same with buying a home. You got to plan it out because, like you just said, there might be something there that you're not quite ready for that you can fix when you are mentally ready to buy a home. Because those are two different things: being financially ready and mentally.
Well, oh, for sure. Well, we have clients. I mean, it's great when somebody walks into the office and they've got 20% down and perfect credit and know what they want.
Correct.
Please come on down. That'd be great. And I want to speak for other realtors, but at least in my career, that is a rarity. That is a great rarity. Most of the time, it's, I'd like to buy a house. What do I need to do? My accountant told me I have to buy a house. What do I need to do? That kind of stuff. There's usually something, or I'm getting married, I want to buy a house. I'm having kids, I want to buy a house. Something like that usually kind of precipitates it. But we have clients that we work with for, a couple of weeks and they're in a house. We have other clients we work with for years before we get them into a house. I've got one client who is the longest ever. We've been working with her now for 9 years.
Wow.
Her credit is spotless at this point. And she has just got it through her head. She has to put 20% down. She's become a friend. We've had this conversation many times. And she's just waiting until she has that 20% down. And
That's
she
one
really
of them,
shouldn't
too.
do that, but that's just kind of her thing.
That's one of them too with the down payment is how much you actually need. But the other one also is, I'll give you an example. I want to pay down some credit card debt first, or I want to pay my student loans off first, or pay those down first. If you do a pre-approval, you might find that debt to income wise, you already qualify with the debt that you have. So instead of spending that money by paying down the debt, you could be saving that to put more
Put into a
down as a
house.
down payment.
Yeah.
If you already qualify with the credit card payments,
Yeah.
you don't need to pay them off yet.
Yeah.
Right? Or
there-
the student loans, they have zero down payment. I mean, sorry,
Zero interest.
zero payment.
Well,
loans.
depending on if you're deferred or not. Yeah, exactly.
Income-driven repayment plans.
sure,
you can go
exactly.
to zero, and then
Exactly.
you don't have to pay those off.
Exactly. Also, you can sometimes pay off these debts through a deal. I mean, if we've had the FHA's had that longstanding rule where if you owe less than 10 months on your car payment, they don't have to count the payment.
Correct.
The number of people that we've had, as part of a deal, pay down a car loan. So, hey, you got no your payment. So he get down under that 10-month threshold, so we didn't have to count it. We do that. That happens a lot.
Now I understand that though. So let's say after you get the home, if you want to free up some monthly expenses, then by all means pay the car off so that mortgage payment's easier for you.
Sure,
but
sure.
You may not want to do it before you buy a home because you could use that for the down payment.
Sure. So So if you don't want to do it before, you can do it during, or you can do it after. I mean, you have other options. But again, that's the point. You got to kind of find out what's going on. You got to take a look at what your situation is, and then
See where you
tailor.
stand today.
Yeah, exactly. And then tailor a solution, tailor a program that works for them. I mean, my friend who's been going on for 9 years. Cece, how are you? She's been going on for 9 years, and she's the best I love her. But she's also got the world's greatest rentals, so she's kind of, that's part of her problem. She
That
has
does make it hard.
Well, she rents a house. She rents a house that's actually owned by a church, and they rent her church, and they rent her the property at 30% of rental value.
Right.
So you don't want to give that up anytime soon either.
I've seen that too. Their rental payments maybe $1,000, and I'm like, I'm almost scared to quote you.
Yeah, that's going to be some payment shock when she buys something.
Right.
So we'll get into it eventually. So so they come in and we're all pre-qualified now, and they've met their base criteria. You've worked through the thing, and now they know that the various loan programs are out there. There are various grant programs out there for you. We have when we run a course. Now's a good time to talk about it. We have the rental rebate program, which you guys hear me talk about all the time. If you're renting, we do this in conjunction with the Mortgage Hub. If you are renting a property, we can give you, underline that, give, you don't pay it back, we can give you up to 10% of the rent you have already paid to go buy a house. Now, there are limitations. It maxes out at 1% of a purchase price. It's only back the last 2 years as far as your rental history. But, we're on a mission to try to get people out of renting and into owning. You have got to get into the ownership society. I quote this all the time. AARP did a survey just before the pandemic, a pretty good sized survey. I think it was like 10,000 people. But anyway, and they determined that 98% of everyone they talk to must have the equity in their home to be able to retire. Not retire in style, not retire and even keep the same lifestyle that they've currently got, but just to survive retirement, because Social Security is not going to get it done. If you got a good pension, God bless, but there are fewer and fewer of those out there. So they needed the equity they built in their home over a lifetime to be able to retire, which is the other thing that drives me crazy about this generational wealth nonsense if you're first time, because a lot of that wealth is getting used up now, so it's not there to be passed down. So it's really, really unfair to say something is generationally based. But we'll finish that conversation some other time. But I have thoughts. But anyway, so yeah, you can literally get money for free from us to go buy a house. If you're a renter and you can hear my voice, for goodness sake, give me a call. We'll get you into it. My phone number is six. This is my personal cell phone. I give it out all the time. I know everyone's always worried about that, but I do it. 661-714-1400. That number again is 661-714-1400, and you can reach me through that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've had a few texts even while I've been sitting here. If I don't answer, just text me. I will call you back as soon as I can. I try to return all my calls within 24 hours, if not sooner. And we will literally give you money to help you buy a house. I can't make it easier than that. We will literally give you money to help you buy a house if you're a renter. So, yeah, renting is a sucker's bet. I'm a landlord. I have renters as well, and I tell them constantly, please. I mean, rent from me as long as you'd like, because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it is not the best deal in the world for you, renter. You really need to. Here's 10% of the rent you've already paid. So thank you, and let's get you into a house. That's where I was converting that way. But yes, but if you're a renter, you don't have to be renting one of my houses. If you're a renter at all, or you're renting anywhere, give me a call. We'll get you set up. We'll John help as well, and we'll get you squared away. We'll get you into a house. It's what we do. So, all right. So they come in. They're pre-qualified. They got their down payment together. Mm-hmm. Everything's firing on all 8. Now what?
At that point, depending on the competitiveness of your area, that's where the relationship between the realtor and the loan officer come into play on how to make your offer stronger.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, you want to beat out anybody else. There's ways you can lessen the time for the contingencies. Maybe you got a property inspection waiver because there's enough equity there if you're putting the 20% down. There's different things that you can do to make your offer look stronger, and you have to communicate that with each other.
Well, let's talk about that kind of inside baseball stuff. When you go to buy a house, if you are not pre-qualified, you are not going to be taken seriously. No one is taking an offer from you without a pre-qualification. If you're smart, you'll get approved. So you're not just pre-qualified, but you're pre-approved. That'll make you a whole lot stronger, because what you're telling the seller is that you're ready to go. Your loan is in place. You're ready to go. Certainty has a value. I talk about that. I talk about this all the time when I'm training people. Certainty has a value. And when you go to a seller, their biggest concern, other than, their number 2 concern, I should say, number 1 is price, obviously. But their number 2 concern is, okay, if we make a deal with this person, is it going to close escrow? Because here are the statistics, guys. 50% of all escrows nationwide do not close. That's 50%. Half the time somebody thinks they bought a house, half the time somebody thinks they sold a house, they're making plans to move on to their next house, or doing all that stuff. It falls apart.
And if it's a nice home and a good home, there's other offers.
Yeah, there'll be multiple offers. Oh, yeah. Especially in this market, they'll turn you over immediately. Oh, of course. So you'll annoy the seller. They'll wind up taking another offer. You'll be out of a house. You may have gotten so deep into it, you're paying for inspection reports and stuff, and that money will all be gone. So get yourself in a position where you're making the strongest offer. And I don't just mean with the price you're offering. I'll tell you this from personal experience. It is not at all uncommon for there to be multiple offers on a property, and for our clients to get the deal even though they weren't the high bidder. And I know it annoys my fellow realtors, and for that I can only be sorry. I'm only sorry, but we use things like buyer brokerage contracts, which we can talk about some other time. We make sure our clients are pre-approved, not just pre-qualified, but pre-approved. We make sure we have our ducks in a row, because the stronger your offer is going in, the less you're going to have to pay for the house. And you'll get the deal, more importantly.
Sorry. I think what a lot of people don't understand also is there's certain documentation that lenders require based on certain situations.
Of course.
Right? So if what happens sometimes is they go to put an offer in on a home, and then the realtor says, okay, well, I need you to get it pre-approved. Now they're trying to do it in one day.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're like a nurse, for example, say you're a nurse, and they're going to average your income because there's all kind of differential pays and what have you. Let's just say your income's lower last year. Lender's going to want to know why. Let's just say it was maternity leave. They're going to want a letter from your employer, and then they'll be able to average and subtract the months that you were out. Yeah. But if you have to go get that documentation quickly, then you're going to have trouble, and you're probably going to miss out on that house when you could have planned ahead of time, had it ready, and had your financing set.
Well, ultimately, that's always the secret to a successful purchase is plan ahead.
Just be ready.
Get your ducks in a row. And I apologize to you ahead of time, because I know you're not going to like this part. It's not a bad idea to talk to multiple lenders. Now, what I would suggest is, it's just my suggestion, we have all of our clients do this, you start with the mortgage hub, for sure, because they're typically going to be your best deal anyway, and they're going to be able to do a lot more stuff than other lenders can do, and that's really the bottom line here, is getting it done as quickly and as efficiently and as inexpensively as possible. And that's what we do.
I think most importantly on that is, if you're with a good lender, no matter who they are, and you're just calling to just start asking questions, and like your friend 9 years later, a good lender will give you the information that you need and stick around and now open up the line so you can call and have questions and hang in there with you until the right time comes where you actually get that house.
Well, Cece's been talking to our mutual friend Sam of those 9 years, for about 3 of them, maybe 4.
He's the same way.
So it's the same thing.
Once you call and once you talk, you're now you have a line of communication
exactly.
and use it.
And also, if you guys are out there to hear it, it doesn't cost you anything. This is free. So for free, you get somebody on the phone, you get somebody helping you get your ducks in a row. They get you ready to go. They'll educate you. They'll tell you what you need to know. They'll tell you a lot of stuff you don't need to know as well, just so you have all the information to go from. And you can start planning, because we know the interest rate is going to go down. It's a little prayer there in the middle if you guys notice the pause. It's just a matter of when. It has to. We were really hoping it was going to start to break in April, because spring would be a good time for that to happen, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So now it's going to be third or fourth quarter of this year. But if you're a buyer and you're not quite ready yet, get in the game now. And I don't mean go buy a house now. I mean, let's get you on the phone with the lender. Let's get your pre-qualification underway. Let's get you pre-approved if we have the time to do that, if you have the ability to do that. But let's start getting stuff done so you don't get stung with this later. Because once you're excited about buying a house and then you find out you have an issue maybe with your credit, I promise you it's going to cost you money. If you can still keep the deal together.
And
it's
also, I just did one this week where she has a credit, almost 800 FICOs. She has the income, does very well. Just didn't have all the money saved, but now she knows how much she needs to save. Now she has a goal.
Well, you got to have a target.
And now she even admitted she could cut out a little bit of traveling. She can cut out some extra spending because she now has a plan on how much she needs.
Exactly.
And it wasn't as much as she thought. That's the other thing.
So, so the lesson here is get involved early. Give John a call. We'll give you his number. Give people your number again, which I know we've done this twice.
949-836-8055.
I don't mean to belabor the point, but it's always a good idea for you guys to have the information. The next step for anybody who's here is give John a call. Let's see what we can do. Give me a call. I'm happy to help as well. I'll be happy to help out. I'll help you point you toward him. But I tell you what, let's go. Can you stay through the commercial? I want to talk about tips and tricks.
Of course.
I tell you what, guys, keep listening. If you would, through the commercial, we're going to break for some advertising. When we get back, we're going to talk about tips and tricks, how you can get this done and get it done cheaper and better and get a better deal out of the whole thing. So listen through the break. I'm your host, Rich Szerman. You've reached the Real Estate Fix on KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220, your hometown station. Please listen through us through the break. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. You're listening to the Real Estate Fix with Rich on KHTS, 98.1 FM, AM 1220. Here where we fix all sorts of real estate issues and get into all sorts of stuff for you, teach you how to make this stuff work for you. Because here's the deal with real estate, guys. The best way to make money in this generation, the best way to leave generational wealth to your kids is with real estate. Real estate is more sound than stocks, than bonds, than anything else. Keep in mind, I've got an opinion here. I've spent a lifetime in this industry, so I definitely have an opinion. But real estate, in my thinking, residential real estate, I mean, in my lifetime, I bought my first house in Santa Clara Valley in 1991, maybe it was earlier, 89. Anyway, I paid $146,000. A buddy of mine still owns that house. We were talking about what it's worth a few days ago. $725,000 is what it's worth today. That's pretty good over the course of 25, 30 years. That's pretty good. So yeah, residential real estate. So we're sitting with John Mraz from the Mortgage Hub, and we're talking about all things mortgage. We talked about kind of some of the basics of getting involved with the mortgage, how you kind of get into it. We talked a little about the rental rebate program. We will literally give you money if you're a renter. We will give you money to buy a house. So yeah, if you're a renter and you can hear this, give us a call, because this is no joke. You can use the money for anything. It's not just some credit. If it's something to be charged to escrow, you can use the money. You still have to qualify for a loan. You still have to do all that other good stuff. But if you're going to put 3% down and we're giving you 1%, well, now it's 2% down. And if you're doing a 100% program, you can use the money for closing costs, use it for buy downs, all kinds of stuff. So, but let's talk about tips and tricks from inside the mortgage industry. Let's talk about some of the stuff that can be done in order to get you a better deal. So we're talking about at the break, but with 2-1 buy downs. Explain what a 2. It's a very fancy term. It's a very simple program, but it's kind of a fancy term. I don't want to scare you guys. What is a 2-1 buy down?
It's a program that a lot are using now that helps, basically gives you a lower rate in the beginning of your loan to help you acclimate to the payment. I'll give you a quick example. Let's just say the house you're looking for is listed and been on the market for a little bit at $800,000. Some people will think their first step would be, well, let's offer less. Let's offer $770. So that's a $30,000 adjustment. And for the seller, that's $30,000 less in profit for them. However, it only really lowers your payment by about $190, just under $200 a month.
Sure. Again, why a $5,000 credit means nothing. But go ahead.
Exactly, same thing.
Yeah.
Instead, what you can do is pay the $800,000, ask the seller for a $30,000 seller credit. That money goes aside into an escrow account, and then it basically subsidizes your payment with a lower rate. So instead of paying the 7%, in the first year you'll pay a 4%. And the difference of that 3% will come out of that escrow account.
Also, you might want to catch up. Keep in mind, guys, when you're listening to this, the difference between 4% and 7% on an interest rate is not just essentially half. It's a lot more than that, because interest rates kind of build on each other. So a 4% interest rate versus a 7% interest rate is going to drop your mortgage payment by roughly 2/3.
You're looking at, in that situation,
Mhm.
it'll be $1,157 difference
Yeah.
for 12 months.
So yeah,
versus
it's huge.
200 by
Yeah.
offering $30,000 less
Yeah,
on the purchase
yeah.
price. And then the next year, it goes 2% lower than your original 7.
Mhm.
So you're at 5%. That's a savings of $791 a month.
Mhm.
And on the third year, you go to 6%, which is a savings of $405 a month.
So you're talking about $23,000.
You're at about $28,000
Yeah, by
in
the time you're
savings
over
over
3
those
years.
3 years,
Yeah.
instead of asking for $30,000 off the purchase
So yeah,
price.
so you're 30,000. You get the credit for it. You use it. You get 28 of that 30 kind of goes to you directly in effect because it lowers your mortgage payment, makes it easier to be in the house, save the house.
Correct.
And if what everybody's saying is right, and we actually over the next 2 or 3 years see much lower interest rates, I don't think we're getting back to the 3.5 that we were at during the pandemic or anything, but 5.5 seems to be kind of the equilibrium point that we really need to reach. That's what most of the economists are saying. And I don't think by the end of the year, especially with the new news, I think we might, if we're really, really lucky, we all say our prayers and we're really lucky, maybe we get to, I'm not a terribly religious guy, but in this case I will, to anything to help the interest rate. But maybe we get down to 6% by the end of the year, but I don't think we'll hit 5.5. We're probably going to be around 6.25, I would guess, by the end of the year is my
And
guess.
if in those 3 years, if you do get there, if you do get under 6 or 5.5 or even 6, and you refinance,
Yeah.
you get your permanent rate.
Yeah.
If you don't use that $28,000, say you only use 20 of it, that $8,000 remaining balance is still yours.
Oh, cool.
You
I
get
see.
that.
Well, see, I learned something today.
Yes.
I didn't know I could learn something today. That's wonderful. Thank you.
So it basically gets you by those 3 years. Hopefully, rates
Yeah,
do fall.
yeah,
You can refi, and you never really dealt with the 7.
So right away, there's one strategy, you guys, if you're listening, just to give you the short course here. There's a strategy where inside a deal, you can get $30,000 set aside in the deal to offset your mortgage payment over the next 3 years. Means your mortgage payment will be a lot lower. Means you got more options. Also easier to qualify for, I'm sure, because you're qualifying for the mortgage payment with your ratios. So if your ratios are tight, this would be a godsend because this will lower your ratios.
Well, you still need to qualify for the
Of course.
for the 7,
Of
but
course.
it does make it a little bit easier to swallow.
Yeah, well, I would think the lender would like it because if you default, there's you got a whole bunch of money sitting
course.
there and they can grab it up. So,
Of course.
so there's yet another great strategy that'll help. Now, for first-time buyers, let's focus on first-time buyers a little bit because I don't think too many first-time buyers are going to do a 2-1 buy down. I don't think they kind of have that in mind. Although there's no reason they couldn't. I
They
suppose
can if you're asking. I mean, like you said,
Yeah.
there's buyers asking for things now. If sellers want to sell their house,
Yeah, sure.
they're asking for credits.
Sure. Well, like anything else, it depends on. I was thinking in this area, it'd be much more likely if it's an $800,000 house, you're paying $834.
And you don't have to ask
just
for
have to do it that way.
$30,000 for 3 years. You could do a
Well, yeah.
2-1 buy down or
Yeah.
even 1 year. And
Yeah, but however you structure it up, the point is
Correct.
the highlight here is you can take money out of a deal as part of the purchase and essentially set it aside to help offset your mortgage payment. So that way you don't go through the massive payment shock, and your mortgage payment, at least a portion of it, is taken care of for you. So it's really starting to achieve, as far as payment wise, what the interest-only payments kind of were. That was, designed to keep payments. It was interest-only was a horrible idea.
Right.
You guys can hear this. I'm not endorsing this. Interest-only was a bad idea. The only thing dumber than interest-only was negative amortization, where you owe more every month, and that caused a lot of foreclosures and havoc. A lot of what happened in 2008 was a result of those bad mortgage products. So bad that most of them now are illegal. There are still some out there, but so yeah, don't do that. But this is something akin to that, but doing it the right way because it'll help lower your payment, help get you into the house, make the payment easier to afford, but you're not dealing with, but you are still paying off the house as you go, which is the idea. It's a fully amortized payment, which is the idea. Amortized means you're paying it off as you go. So let's talk about first-time buyers a little bit because we talked about the rental rebate program. I like alliteration, so I get the seller and the buyer one confused. Anyway, the rental rebate program. So. What other incentives are there for first-time buyers? There's all kinds of stuff that's locally based. There's some stuff that's government. There's overlays for FHA, for example.
There is. I mean, there's first responders,
Sure,
down payment assistance. There's different kinds of down payment assistance where the biggest one right now that everybody's probably hearing is the Dream for All is back.
Yeah, but it'll be back for about 30 seconds. If you guys,
Just like the last one.
Yeah,
and even different. It's a lottery.
Yeah, I heard that too. So so if you guys remember, this is a great program administered through, I think it's CalHalf has the administration of it. So, and it's a great program. It lets you get into a house super easy. It's super cheap. It's a great program. It really is. So good that when they opened it up last year, it was open for the application process was basically about 4 days. You had a 4-day window to apply, and they were all gone. The grants were all used up.
They were out of money quick.
And this year you apply whenever you want, as long as you're within the window. But then they're going to do a lottery to see who actually gets the grant. That's how good this loan product is. There's only so much money they can give out to help subsidize it, and there are way more people than want it than are going to be able to get it.
And if you do, the window is April 3rd through April 29th. So you have to have your pre-approval in there. Get with your lender, get that ready, get it submitted immediately.
Tell them what that program does for them.
Well, it's for first-time home buyers. What it does is it gives you a loan up to 20% of the purchase price, but you do share some of the equity with the lender.
Well, give you
But it is
20%.
capped.
Yeah.
0% interest. You have to pay it back when you sell or refi that initial loan. And it comes with that, what I told you. First, at least one borrower has to be first generation, but that's within 7 years.
Yeah.
Not-
At least
not
it's
total,
not
but
forever.
7.
It's just, your parents have
One
it last year.
one borrower has to be a first-time home buyer, no homes in 3 years, and your parents can't own a home as well. Same kind of situation.
Yeah, I don't like those limitations. I get what they're after, but again, this is a program that is so popular that they have to run a lottery to allow people into it because they were overwhelmed last year.
Well, it's giving 20%, right?
Yeah.
So that gives you an 80% payment versus just 5% on some other. It is a lot.
It is a great program. It's one of the best I've ever seen, and it comes around every year and it goes out immediately. Again, last year they thought they'd have it open for about 2 months, and it was done in 4 days. And it's not like if you could pick up the phone on Monday and say, I'd like to get into that program, and you'd be in it by Thursday. If you were not already pre-approved, pre-qualified at least, and if you didn't already have a lender who's plugged into that program last year, you didn't get a shot.
Yeah, you got
we
a
had
couple
people
weeks.
who tried. It's just you did not have a shot. And given that the window is opening on April 3rd this time around, now is the time. If you're interested in doing this, you may be able to be one of the lucky ones who wins that lottery, and you get a house for, you essentially get a 20% loan that's deferred. So you're only servicing the debt on 80% of your purchase price. That's going to save you thousands. That is a very, very, very good deal. So anyway, all kinds of stuff going with that. So I tell you what, if you're interested, if you want to buy a house, you want to sell a house, give me a call. If you have problems with real estate, if you got an issue with your mortgage or in default, we do foreclosure defense for free and all that other fun stuff. My wife's also a real estate attorney, so we get a lot of advice from her sometimes for people. Give me a call. I can be reached at 661-714-1400. That's my personal cell phone number. I do answer it 24 hours a day. And if I don't answer text, I'll call you back. 661-714-1400. I can also get you in touch with John if you need his services. I'm happy to help you out there too. And one last thought as we leave. Last time around, 2 weeks ago, I read a thing from a book called the Darwin Awards, which I absolutely love. It's something I do for clients under the heading of no one, if you think you're dumb, these are people who are a lot dumber than you. However dumb you feel, there is somebody dumber than you. And these are all people who took themselves out of the gene pool by doing something incredibly stupid. I got a lot of emails about that, and I appreciate it. You guys really liked it. It's called the Darwin Awards. There's a series of books. It was done by a woman named Wendy Northcutt. She's amazing. They're fantastic. They're good reads. If you guys like it that much, I will bring it back. We'll do it again next week. We'll do some more Darwin Awards for you to wrap up the show because I got a lot about that. I got people sending me stuff that they've seen. I don't publish these things. I just think it's funny. Anyway, you've been listening to The Real Estate Fix with Rich on KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220. Happy Friday to all you guys. Be good humans. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you guys for listening. I'm Rich Szerman. Have a good week.